Oh, what's up guys, it's the Nightwing at Way of Life Esports coming at you guys with another League of Legends video here today. During the 2020 World Championship, TSM went 0-6. It was the worst record a Pool 1 seed from any major region had ever had. The only other worst record a Pool 1 seed from a major region had ever had was Flash Wolves, who went 1-5 during the 2017 World Championship group stage. The 2020 offseason is now going to usher in a new era for TSM, with the added aspect that Bjergsen, their long-standing mid laner since 2014 LCS Spring Split, has now retired, and Doublelift, who just recently came back to TSM during the LCS 2020 Summer Split, has also now retired. Two of the LCS's iconic players have now retired, thus ushering in a new era for TSM. Spica remains the only player from the TSM LCS 2020 Summer Split roster. And also, during the LCS 2020 season, TSM went through other changes as well, because during the LCS 2020 Spring Split, there was also Dardoch and Kabe, who later on were removed from the roster after TSM's disappointing LCS 2020 Spring Split. Now, you have this brand new roster TSM are going to be running, and I personally think there's a good reason why they could actually do well. So let's go over their new roster for the LCS 2021 season. Top lane, Huni, jungle Spica, mid laner Power of Evil, AD carry Lost, and the $6 million worth dollar every penny, I hope he is, support SwordArt. So let's go over every single player, let's evaluate all their strengths and weaknesses, and let's see if this TSM roster for the LCS 2021 season can be insanely strong. Now, in my own personal opinion, this doesn't really feel like a traditional TSM team. I've normally associated TSM with Bjergsen, and you most likely just put good players around Bjergsen and you build around Bjergsen. But let's be honest here, guys. Outside of that just working in the LCS, that has never really worked internationally. I personally think Bjergsen in some ways held them back because you only really could play through him, and they only really put players around Bjergsen to otherwise enable him. Now that obviously changed when they got Doublelift, but even later on after that, it was pretty much just Bjergsen by even the Doublelift interviews that they had him on for the LCS 2020 Summer Split after TSM had played games. Doublelift had constantly praised Bjergsen for how much he was carrying the team, and I personally think Bjergsen did offer a lot towards TSM. He drew out a ton of bans. He was always a carry threat, but in some areas you could see how this is also hindering the team as well. And even internationally, Bjergsen never really was that good outside of just a few years he had went to the World Championship overall, but still, in my own personal opinion, a really solid player. But now TSM get to move on with these new players. Now, let's just look at Huni, who was their newest top laner for the LCS 2021 season, and I'm going to cut into another player corresponding to the top side, which is Hauntzer, who is now back on TSM for their academy team. So if Huni starts slumping, there's a good chance that Hauntzer could move up to the starting spot. But for right now, let's just talk about Huni. So personally, in my own personal opinion, Huni has been bad in the LCS for about 2 years roughly. Though, people like to kind of retcon history and say he was always bad. Not true. He was really insane on Fnatic. He was really insane on Immortals, and he was really good on Echo Fox when he was playing with Dardoch all the way up until the 2018 Rift Rivals tournament, where he just fell off a cliff. After the 2018 Rift Rivals tournament, Huni had fell off a cliff. He just wasn't the same player. On Clutch Gaming, he was okay at best, like more or less so kind of what TSM was doing with Bjergsen. Clutch Gaming we're trying to do with Huni, but just to an obvious lesser degree, since top lane really hasn't been impactful the same way mid lane has. It's obviously had a lot less impact on the map, because if your top laner is ahead, you could just get ahead in your mid and bot lane, which would obviously still win you games, even though you'll have a fed top laner. Huni just really hasn't been the same player. His laning has been abysmal, in my own personal opinion. Even when he was on the Evil Geniuses Academy team, he wasn't really that good. He was getting solo killed by Academy top laners. Like, his laning was bad. And then, you know, people tried to change the narrative around Huni when he obviously was playing for Evil Geniuses in the LCS 2020 Summer Split playoffs, where he looked pretty decent overall. But I think that was how I look at it personally, like, he's just looking that good because everyone else around him doesn't look good. You know how that usually pans out with players? Like, normally, a player like Huni at this point should be looked at as a complete downgrade from Broken Blade. Huni is a complete downgrade from Broken Blade. I'm not sugarcoating anything. I always say what's on my mind, always tell it like it is. Huni is a complete downgrade from Broken Blade. It is like night and day difference because people are just going to go off their past resumes, and that means shit compared to what is going on right now. I have no personal reason or clue that I can logically think of in my brain why TSM didn't go for Licorice. Maybe they couldn't obviously buy him out. Maybe it was too much money. Or why did you just go back to Hauntzer? I personally think Hauntzer should be the starting top laner over Huni. I know there's been people that have been telling me, you know, maybe you should give Huni a chance. Maybe he's not that bad as you're thinking. Relatively, you could be telling the truth as well. But if we're just going off of what we've seen in the game, he really has not been that impactful. His most impactful champions are what, like Rumble and Orin. Rumble's not really that meta anymore, and Orin's just a consistent meta staple pick in all of the competitive regions. Literally, that's nothing significantly unique to Huni. Or, you know, he just plays like Gangplank, and that's also not significantly unique to him as well. Every top laner should be able to play Orin and Gangplank. So in terms of just being a carry top laner that can be on an island and then just farm for himself, I mean, is he really going to do that any more better than either Hauntzer or potentially Licorice if they could have gotten these two players on their starting roster? Like, let's be honest here. Like, what is he really going to provide? Now, some people have narrowly misunderstood things that I've said in past videos and on podcasts where obviously he can have a good synergy with SwordArt. Maybe potentially, but SwordArt normally, as I'll get to him later, he normally plays through his jungler. SwordArt successfully throughout his career plays through his jungler, SOFM and Karsa. Karsa doesn't, and more or less so Karsa sort of had a really good dynamic. SOFM and SwordArt had a great dynamic from what I personally saw. I don't really think SwordArt and Huni will have the great dynamic. They feel like players that just play the game a completely different way in terms of Huni could definitely be a permanent weak side top laner, but that later on is going to get exposed, and I don't know how much resources he's overall going to be getting. Now, if they're dedicating resources and comps to Huni, I think that is going to be a mistake overall. Though, I do think, you know, this is Huni's last shot to prove himself as an LCS level top laner. Let's just say TSM make the finals for whatever the spring is going to be called for the LCS 2021 season, because we know we don't have a spring split. It's just a whole season, but they're going to have that mid cutoff point for that tournament to go to MSI. Let's say TSM make the finals of that tournament. Then that would obviously be something that's good for not only TSM, but all the players on it. But that doesn't mean that Huni was the one that was the overall carry and got them there. Overall, I think he has a wide champion pool, but that doesn't mean anything when he's been laning bad. He's been playing overall poorly. Yeah, he had an okay playoff series with Evil Geniuses in the LCS 2020 summer split, but like, does that really negate all the other bad play that happened? There's a reason why he wasn't starting at the beginning of the year. There's a reason for that, you know? And also, to a certain point, why he wasn't starting, because he did start, as most people would probably let me know, he did start on Dignitas earlier this year. I already knew that. I was kind of bridging into points why he wasn't starting later on. He didn't play that good. Remember, Huni had that big contract, and even before all these other big contracts were later on there, remember, Huni had that $2.1 million contract in the 2019 offseason. There's a reason why Dignitas replaced him. Now, did they get someone better? Doesn't matter. He was playing absolutely abysmal for the type of money they were paying this person. Overall, I personally think you could have just gotten a much better player, and the fact that you had Licorice as an available option is saying something why you just went with him. Or you had Impact. Impact would have been perfect for TSM. I think Impact is a player TSM has always needed. Serviceable weak side top laner with strong carry potential upset when needed. Impact is also very clutch. I personally think Huni has not been that clutch during most of his time. He's generally choked in big moments. I don't think this is a player that fits TSM style at all. I think this is going to be a complete mismatch. I am not a fan of the move. And now we're going to the jungler. So the jungler is Spica, obviously. So, Spica got most of his recent praise from the 2020 World Championship, but let's be completely honest here. He played well in the LCS 2020 Summer Split Playoffs, where he obviously brought out the jungle Shen. He was actually playing pretty well toward playoffs, though. in my personal opinion, he was one of the worst junglers in the league when the LCS 2020 summer split started. But later on, as the split progressed, he became probably, arguably, if you want to do like jungler power rankings, there was Closer, you had Svenskeren, Santorin, somewhere Spica's probably down there, and like, no, because you also had Smithy at a certain point. He was pretty solid. Overall, I think that Spica is like a 6th place jungler at the end of the day. I don't think his Worlds 2020 form is really indicative of who he actually is as a player, and I think a lot of people are going to be taking that World 2020 performance and applying that to this up-and-coming LCS 2021 season, and personally think that's him. I don't think that's true. In this up-and-coming LCS 2021 season that relies on Season 11, you need to have a strong jungler. All these new changes for Season 11 really bridge the whole team together by having a strong jungler. Spica, I personally think, is worse than Closer. He's worse than Blabber to a certain extent, and by a lot of extent, if you're looking at just base mechanics. Santorin, he provides more than him. I think Smithy was still better at a certain point, and Svenskeren was also insanely strong. So I personally think even in the jungle position, they're going to also have a problem here, because I don't think he's that strong, and I also don't think he's as aggressive and as a playmaking jungler as the other junglers in the league. And even looking at Worlds 2020, even when he got leads, he really didn't do anything. Let's be honest here. People praise him for his Worlds 2020 performance, but he really didn't do anything. Let's be honest here. Like, any other jungler with those type of leads would completely take over the game. He did it. Now, is that in part due to the fact that, you know, the rest of his team was falling apart? Sure, let's just say that. But a lot of other junglers carry even though their team falls apart. That's just how these things are going to happen. As how I personally see it's going to really be. It's Spica's a player that people saw do really well at one tournament, and then are going to think that's really him. And then obviously, when the split or the LCS 2021 season starts, he might not be that player he was at Worlds 2020. And I want to bridge another example people have for a player like him, which was Onda. Onda, who was at the 2018 World Championship with the 100 Thieves, looked pretty solid, like a competent caliber jungler. Came back to the LCS the next split and was completely trash. Let's be honest here. So, you know, I'm just gonna say I'm ready to be proven wrong with any of my predictions on any players that I'm gonna be talking about during these videos, but I just want to make sure people understand why I'm saying these things. Also, if you're going by having a top-end jungle duo, I think that's gonna be like Huni and Spica as your top jungle duo. Yikes. That's a big yikes right there. But moving on to Power of Evil. So Power of Evil, I think, is arguably a top 3 mid laner in the LCS. The fact that Bjergsen has retired and TSM got Power of Evil is really good. I do want to praise TSM for that, because that's actually a really insane move. I personally think TSM really getting and submitting Power of Evil will help them later on potentially challenge for a top spot in the LCS 2021 season later on, because Power of Evil, shown throughout all his career, has been a relatively consistent carry mid laner. Whether you want to call him a mage player, doesn't matter. He consistently creates new builds. He's a very strong laner. He gets lane leads, generates his own resources, roams effectively, plays around his jungler effectively. This is literally basically another Bjergsen, but with different upsides. I personally think Power of Evil can have better upsides than Bjergsen in many different scenarios now that he's given a team that can finally play towards his strength. And even if the whole team just want to play through Power of Evil, that's not a bad idea, because we saw FlyQuest get and make 2 back-to-back LCS 2020 season finals by playing through Power of Evil. And if anybody tries to tell me that FlyQuest didn't play through Power of Evil during the whole 2020 year, you are dumb and you haven't been watching League. Don't talk to me. Power of Evil at Worlds 2020 was able to flame Horizon Chovy. If that doesn't cement you as a really good player, and Chovy's power ranked in that event to be like the 3rd, 5th best player at the event, TSM got a really good mid laner. I think he'll be the X factor to get TSM far if they eventually try to take the trophy this year for the LCS 2021 season. Now, I personally think bunching Power of Evil up with your bot side is going to be the other X factor. So I can't really speak on Lost too much. I did watch I normally watch the Academy games. I know it's a meme that people don't watch them. I actually did watch. I more or less watch the top teams. I'll be honest here. I only really watched like Cloud9, TSM, and Team Liquid Academy teams. And then I also watched FlyQuest Academy games from my buddy of Triple, who was on there as their Academy mid laner. But other than that, I personally am really interested to see how Lost will develop. The last time I saw Lost in the LCS, as you guys know, as when you guys saw him, was during the LCS 2018 summer split, where he got knocked out of playoffs with Echo Fox to TSM, which is crazy. He's now back on the org that knocked him out back then. And then he got, obviously, knocked out by TSM again in the regional qualifier of that year. So it's just crazy how sometimes these players come full circle back to teams that beat them, because these are the top orgs that you want to be on to beat the other teams. Now, Lost was a player that I only really saw play Varus, and I really didn't think he was that good, honestly, because if you're Varus one trick and that gets banned, you're going to look bad on other picks. Though he did look good on Kai'Sa, but Kai'Sa's not meta right now, so I'm just really interested to see what type of ADC he's going to be, because I do feel like the old TSM team just had a certain playstyle they were only going to play towards and a terrible macro. So with these new players, it is a big potential that they can also open up TSM to newer playstyles. Now, the difference is going to be later on, which I'll talk about, which is Bjergsen as a coach, which I'll tackle on. So let's go to SwordArt. So also, this is kind of part of the video where people are going to probably just more or less skip to this point where I'm talking about specifically SwordArt, because, you know, how the video is titled. Is SwordArt really worth the money? Now, let's be honest here. That $6 million deal was said to be played up. So let's just say it's around $2 million, $1 million. It doesn't matter. There's no salary cap. He's not technically overpaid. Let's just dispel that myth. The same thing I said with Spica, I'm going to apply to SwordArt. Was SwordArt only picked up because of his Worlds 2020 performance? Now, I personally think he played really well. I think there's been like these dumb idiots that have been saying that he's not been good all year. Like, what the fuck? No. He's been pretty solid all year long. Now, was he a top 5 support in the LPL? I mean, the LPL's got like, what, 20 supports? So it's hard to say how you rank that personally from your own personal opinion. I would say he was like top 10 all year long. He was solid all year long. He reminds me of Hylissang from, you know, the LEC. Actually, it reminds me a lot about Hylissang, actually. Playmaking support. Now, normally, in terms of SwordArt, him roaming around the map effectively might be a problem, because I don't know how Lost can do with being a weak side AD carry, because Huanfeng was a weak side AD carry because SwordArt would just normally leave him. I think SwordArt just consistently always left. There was a stat where, you know, SwordArt was barely in bot lane, because SwordArt likes to play towards his jungler and likes to get things going. Now, how's that going to really pan out with Spica? Is Spica really going to take that carry role, obviously, for TSM? I'm not really too sure. But I personally think having a player like SwordArt is something that's a double-edged sword. Now, people are thinking that he's going to be the shot caller, the captain. We have no clue of that. Yeah, we can't make obvious claims for that when nothing's been said. I've seen no videos of this new team yet. I've seen no voice comms, nothing. I can't say those things. Is the move a bad pickup? No, I think this is a fantastic pickup. Like, TSM, Cloud9, G2, and Fnatic won the offseason. Let's be honest here. TSM got Power of Evil and SwordArt. That's a pretty good offseason there. If you ask me about that, it's a good offseason. Could they have did better with their roster moves? Yes. But I personally think that SwordArt will be what this team needs. SwordArt is a complete upgrade over Biofrost in, like, every stretch of the imagination. But it depends on his impact as a support on the whole team, you know? So that's kind of what I'm bridging towards. Are people focused on a player that they just saw at one event rather than watching the LPL? Because that's what a lot of people do. They only really see the most recent event, and that's what that player is in their own mind, which is arguably because you have to kind of factor in, when you're talking about peaking, players peak for an event. So obviously SwordArt was peaking at that event and showed pretty much all his cards. Now, I do think he played bad in certain moments during Worlds 2020, obviously, because I think he played poorly in the Damwon versus Suning finals. There was moments during the tournament where he would constantly get caught out as Bard, warding it at ineffective times, just leaving Huanfeng at really ineffective times to cause him to get dove. Like, I know there's been, you know, people I've talked to were thinking that he's just like some perfect support. It's like, no, like, what? He's not perfect, but he definitely is really strong, and he definitely is an upgrade. And his impact on the team is going to be dependent on, will TSM listen to him? Like, TSM consistently signing shot calling supports and not listening to them. Yellowstar, Mithy, fucking Smoothie, SwordArt. And Biofrost is the one I'm excluding from that because obviously, you know, he's just not a shot calling support. I don't really care what Mithy said about, you know, him not being a shot calling support. Why did you think TSM would get you? What else would you provide for them? It wasn't your mechanics. Like, look at all of those supports I just listed off for you. Yellowstar, Mithy, Smoothie, and SwordArt. What do all of them have in common? Being a captain and being a shot caller. So I don't know why Mithy said he didn't know why he was coming to TSM. What the fuck? You weren't coming there for your mechanics. Neither was Yellow Star. You're coming over there to lead macro, shot call, micromanage the team. So can SwordArt do that? It all depends if they listen to him. You know, I've seen this before, so my gut tells me no, but this is the new TSM roster without Bjergsen, so maybe they obviously listen to the guy. I personally would trust anything he says because literally just made the World 2020 Championship Finals. Let's be honest here. It would make more sense if they obviously would listen to his calls and how he can potentially mold a new ADC. You know, him and Lost might definitely be a pretty strong bot lane, but I can't say that yet. Lost hasn't been in the LCS in a very long time, and there's quite a bit of disconnect between Academy and LCS. Now, them being a relatively new bot lane is also going to come with issues. People have to factor this in. They're just taking all these like weird honeymoon phases and then just bridging them all together and going, well, this is what's going to happen. No, with the new bot lane comes issues about how this person chooses to CS, how all these players choose to trade. There's a bunch of issues that come in with the new bot lane that are going to be issues personally for me. This seems like a team that like Cloud9, Team Liquid, Golden Guardians would traditionally build. This doesn't feel like a traditional TSM team to me, but I think this is a good new stepping point in the right direction because I think TSM has always needed a step in the right direction. Now, the last person I want to talk about is Bjergsen. I don't want to spend too much on this because I can't really speculate on Bjergsen being a coach. With Bjergsen being a coach, does that inherently hinder TSM to play the same playstyle that Bjergsen was accustomed to? I don't know if Bjergsen wasn't part of that playstyle. We just have to kind of just go, will he put these moral values into them about how to play the game? Personally, I think it's going to be a personality clash between some of the players and him because I don't know if they are capable of trying a new playstyle and then like being okay to fail with it. Because like when we've watched other TSM videos before and them in game and like interviews before, the players have been very open about if they try something and it fails, the fans kind of like rail them out about it. Though I would say fuck what any fan says because they're stupid and don't know what the fuck they're talking about, but I digress, you know? So that's the issue here is Bjergsen able to get TSM to play a new style, a different macro sense where they're actually being proactive, they're not just losing the game in draft, they're not just consistently giving up all the advantages, they're not just only trying to play through one lane. I personally think their playstyle for a bit of time is only going to be playing through SwordArt gets Power of Evil ahead and Power of Evil carries them. I think that's just kind of what they're going to be able to do right now because I'm not really confident in Huni's carry capabilities. I'm not confident in Spica's carry capabilities. I'm like half and half with Lost's carry capabilities given his Academy performance. Power of Evil, I'm sold on. And SwordArt can definitely carry games on its own. I mean, he got Suning to the World 2020 Championship Finals. He was definitely a very, very influential player throughout that run. But on this team, it's going to be different. It's an entirely new, different experience. You know what I mean? And it depends on what style of direction they're going to be going. I think this overall roster is going to potentially finish around 4th to 3rd. I think it's kind of silly to speculate they would get above Cloud9 or Team Liquid, you know, but it's possible they're competing with 100 Thieves for 3rd. And that's kind of just how I see it right now. But that's it, guys. What do you guys think about TSM's new LCS 2021 season roster? And can SwordArt really get TSM to the top? I really don't know, honestly. You know, these seem like such completely different players across the board. You have a inconsistent top laner, a rather okay consistent jungler, star mid laner, unproven AD carry, star support. The most influential parts of League are jungle and support right now going into Season 11, in my own personal opinion. So it depends on how SwordArt's impact on the team. How far can this get them? We'll see. I'll see you guys later. Like, comment, subscribe. Most of all, enjoy. I'm the Nightwing and Way of Life Esports. Signing out, guys. Have a great day, guys. Peace. See you later. Yo, it's the Nightwing. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video that you guys just watched. And if you did enjoy it, make sure you leave a like and a comment down below. And if you never want to miss out on a single upload, make sure you hit the notification bell. That way you get notified whenever I post a video. Thank you guys for the continued support, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.